There was always a sense that I was different.
And she kind of just reassured me with real life examples that that's not how it was.
It's taken a while to unpack it all because it's a weird thing to have to come out.
I wasn't 100% sure I was lesbian.
I'm one of my sisters in the bikini set. Families are a great thing, but I have one now with my husband.
Being gay because it was on TV when I was growing up.
Shouting 2468, gay is just as good as straight.
Precious queer youth are taken care of.
I've been mistaken for a man ever since age 20.
And yet, back then also you had that freedom to express yourself in these places.
Wait, so like all of these people are LGBTQ?
You're listening to LGBTI Conversations with Anthony Doig. On today's show, our next guest cruises the red carpet speaking to celebrities from all over the world. We speak about how it is being openly gay in the media and also positive body image in the LGBTI community. Justin Hill, welcome to LGBTI Conversations.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for coming on today's show. So you're a finalist in Mr. Gay Pride 2019. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually nominated by someone to be a part of the competition back in 2019, and it was interesting. I'd never really done anything like that before, and I came out the other side of it with a whole new appreciation for anyone who goes through, whether it's drag competitions or balls or Miss Australia, Miss Universe. I was like, it was very, very interesting just sort of seeing the process and, you know, who else was nominated. And even though I didn't win, I actually was invited to come back as a judge this year to judge the gents that went through it this year. So it was actually a really lovely experience, and it definitely came full circle by being asked to come back as a judge.
Because there is a lot that goes on. A lot of people, what they see a distance is not necessarily what goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot more involvement.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can even throw social media in that as well. You know, I was just having a conversation today with a group of people saying that I feel like a lot of us are very guilty for having curated lifestyles on social media. And I try really hard not to do that and to let people into that kind of like other side of my life. And there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I think a lot of people accidentally sometimes just show the glossy, glamorous side of it and, you know, kind of like forget that just how much of their own hard work went into getting to where they are. And they sort of all fall into that category as well. I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors, as is a lot of things, but it's definitely interesting having been on both sides of it to see what kind of work goes in from everyone involved.
And I did see, I think it was an Instagram post or maybe a TikTok post of you the other day going to get something done with your eyebrows. And that was pretty grassroots. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, so I went and had my eyebrows tattooed, and it's a big thing, you know, about being someone in my position. I want to show people that there are ways that they can live their best life. And sometimes that might be following me to the gym and like, you know, I take people through a workout and show them, you know, I go red as a beetroot and I'm really sweaty and really ugly during it, but like it's maybe a new workout that I've tried and I want to share that with people. Or, you know, I'm always kind of like tinkering with my appearance because I'm really proud in the way that I look. You know, I went through a huge weight loss journey. I lost 50 kilos and, you know, I'm kind of like always on the journey of discovering what it is to live my best life. And that includes looking the way that I want to look and, you know, and my appearance, kind of like how I'm feeling or how I'm looking. I want the inside to be projected on the outside. So I love taking people on that journey. And like you said, doing lots of grassroots stuff and just being really honest with people.
What's the feedback you get from doing that? Is it mostly positive or?
It's a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like to talk to me privately about it. And those videos are very interesting because while the likes on them are fairly moderate, the views are very high, which means that a lot of people are stopping to look at it. But, you know, they kind of like would rather speak to me privately about it. And I'm totally fine with doing that. You don't always have to be as brash and outspoken as I am about this stuff. I've chosen to do that. And with being like that, you obviously open yourself to a lot of criticism from people. And in some instances, it does certainly make people feel like they have a bit of a card to tell you what they think about your appearance and their opinion. And, you know, you can't get upset by that because you are essentially opening up your life and allowing people to see that inside look into what you're doing, and you're also talking about something that they may potentially have done themselves. So a lot of people feel like they are entitled to give you their opinion as well. So sometimes it can be a bit tricky because it does trigger things in a lot of people where they're like, oh, you shouldn't be changing your appearance. You should be happy with how you were. You looked fine before. But I'm like, you know what? It's actually nothing to do with you. It's all to do with me. And it's got to be, I'm the one that lives in my body, and I need to be the one that's happy with it. And if I want to do these things, then I will. And I'm not pushing that on anyone, but I certainly would love to educate people and take them along with me because, you know, from what I hear from people, they love to know about it and they love to talk to me about it and are thinking of doing things themselves, thinking of exploring the way they look or changing their appearance or, and, you know, I'm happy to be there for people when they need that advice.
Within the community, I suppose there is a bit of toxicness going on with body image and looking your best all the time. But as you were saying, from your point of view, you're not doing it because the community as a whole says, got to look perfect 24/7. No. You're doing it for yourself. So, and I think that's where we get our wires a little crossed out there, just because you want to self-improve yourself just for yourself, not because you want to put it out there and go, look at me. It's
exactly right.
It's completely
different. I feel like people get caught up in that, and they get caught up in that feeling of firstly thinking that they have to do it. And like, trust me when I say I don't do a single thing to my body that I haven't thought through, you know, extensively, and something that I want to do because I know that I'm the person that has to live with it. So I'm not making, you know, last minute decisions, and nor do I think that our community should. And also too, don't feel pressured into doing things. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I mean, you certainly can watch a video of someone doing something, whether it's surgery or fillers or whatever it is they're doing, and you can be educated by that piece of content, but it certainly doesn't mean that you have to do it or that you're being forced to do it. And I think anyone that thinks that there is a pressure to look a certain way, I mean, the reality is, and trust me, because I have been through this, I have been that person that has kind of thought, well, maybe I do need to go to the gym and be, you know, totally ripped. You know, it's taken me to my current age to understand that the reality is that our community is made up of so many different people, and the people that look, I guess, what society deems to be handsome or beautiful or the ideal person, they're the minority. You know, they're not who we are. We, the people, make up who the people are. So I think that once we get to a point where we understand that, we'll be a lot better as a community and as a society.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, one wise person once said. And it's so true too, because you can have someone who's like a god or a princess, and then they can be with a bear type person and love them to death. It's not about, at the end of the day, it's you like someone for who they are as a person, and that might sound a bit corny, but it's so true. It's you fall in love with the spirit of that person, not the looks. And okay, if they're great looking, that's a bonus. But you look at a lot of couples and they're completely opposite ends of the looking spectrum, if that's such a thing. But it works, and I think
it really does. And also too, I feel like, trust me when I say, when we look at those people that do obsess over how they look, and they do obsess about going to the gym, a lot of them are unhappy. A lot of them are also very happy because it's what makes them happy, and that's fine. But also too, don't think to yourself, I need to be doing that to be happy, because everyone has their own struggles and everyone has their own stuff going on inside their minds that they struggle with, and they look at themselves and they see imperfections. But I think that once you get to the point where you understand that we are all imperfect and we're all different, and that's what makes us interesting. Like, it's just the fact that society has said that a particular thing is beautiful is the reason that we think that it is.
And that's why I pay a fat tax of gym membership every week, and I do not show up, because
don't we all?
That is my punishment. But now, talking about coming out stories, how is your coming out story?
Dramatic.
Like every good person from the LGBTI spectrum, it's got to be dramatic.
Look, for me, it was one of those situations where I feel like everyone that I knew before I did, or they knew on some level. So it wasn't a shock to people, but I always tell this story because hilariously, I'm like, typical me, pulling the limelight back onto myself. It was actually when my sister was going through her really rebellious teenage phase, and, you know, she'd kind of like run away from home, and she'd wound up at my house, and my mother had come to get her, and they were having an argument. And I remember the argument was resolved, and we got through a lot of stuff, and she was feeling a bit better, and we were all feeling very emotional, and I just blurted out, "I'm gay!" And I laugh when I look back at it, because I'm like, man, Justin, couldn't you have just let the moment be about someone else for once? I mean, it was just so on brand. And my sister was like, I knew it. And, you know, my mum was like, are you sure? Like, you know, and she was like, wanted to make sure that I was okay. But when I then started to tell other people in my life, a lot of them were like, yeah, and to be honest, that was probably one of the best reactions, because I was like, what was I worried about? Like, I think I was more concerned about it than anyone else in my entire life.
I totally agree. We get into our heads about it and we think we're so good of an actor, no one's going to know. And then when you do come out, they go, yeah, so?
Yeah, and?
It's like, no, I'm gay. You don't get it. And they go, yeah, we know. We've known.
Yeah, they're like, yeah,
ago.
we know. We've always known. Like, you know, you know on some level. But also, too, I will say, coming out is a right for people. And I really honestly don't feel like that right should be taken away from a lot of people. And I do know a lot of members of the LGBTQIA plus community where that has been taken away from them. And so I feel very strongly about not discussing someone's sexuality, because also too, when you look really fundamentally at it, it's so weird that we discuss people's sexual preference. We don't walk up to straight people and query them about that. It's very odd, but this is what we're living in. That's the reality. And so, you know, we don't want to put our head in the sand about it, but, you know, it's a very important thing for a lot of people to do. And it really does ring home when I say to you, I was more worried about it than what everyone else was, because I needed to go through that kind of like, and I describe it as a little bit like a mourning process. Like you kind of, you know, back when I was coming out, the thought of having children was just not a reality. These days it is, which is wonderful. But, you know, you go through all sorts of things, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this can relate that, you know, you think about not giving grandchildren to your parents. You think about not walking down the aisle, you know, and not doing all of those things that have been instilled in us since we were a child. You know, if you really think about it, coming out is for the person that's doing it only, and it doesn't serve a purpose for anyone else involved.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, because it is an individual journey for everyone, and at every stage too. Just because you're in your teens and you go, yeah, I know who I am, I'm coming out. Some people, it takes a lifetime. We interviewed a guy who came out at 90. So,
and that's just wonderful. Like, for someone to live their truth, you know, and actually do it. Like you say, it doesn't matter what age it is. It's a very interesting observation about, you know, younger kids these days. And I just love the fluidity that they have about their gender, about their sexual preferences. Like, I really do wish that was something when I was younger, and I really encourage younger people to not define themselves by something. And I love this attitude of like, well, today I might like boys, tomorrow I might like girls. Like, you know, who cares? Like, it is what it is. And it's just really great to see that, you know, sort of coming through in this next generation.
And I find that too with the younger generation, it is so very cool that you look in amazement, well, I do anyway, that these people are so open to be who they want to be on the day. They're not going by the month or by the week or the year or their life. They're just going, hey, you know what? I'm going to wear a dress and tee it with a denim jacket today, put some pearls on my wrist, and I'm going out. And their whole group network of friends just go, yeah, so that's totally cool. And
and I think we have a lot to learn from them about living our lives the same way, and not, you know, try not to be defined by that. If you want to start exploring the gender spectrum, and start by doing little things like painting your nails, or, you know, wearing a dress or something like that, just do it, because what have you got to lose? I mean, you might put it on and be like, no, it's not for me. And then, you know, it's just like you've learned something from that. Or you might put it on and be like, actually, this is for me.
Well, the other day I saw this guy. He was in his early 20s. He had a pearl necklace on. He had the matching pearls around his wrist. And I thought, oh, he's a gay guy. And this girl came out and he kissed her and off they walked. And I thought, there you go. I'm just a dinosaur over here. Like, what do I know anymore?
I find the same thing. I'm like, and it surprises me, because I find myself doing exactly the same thing. I find myself putting them in a box.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is they don't want to be in a box, and they don't need to be. And they are living in a world where there's no pressure for them to do that. Like, if they want to explore their feminine side, they definitely can. And I really, really encourage that. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it is so very cool to see. Now, talking about being gay, how have you found it within the media?
It's a really good question because I forget sometimes, and I forget that I am different from everyone else. And it's not until something happens where it kind of shocks me a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm different to other people, or some people might have an issue with it. From a celebrity perspective, it's been very interesting to meet a lot of celebrities who I maybe get a bit of a vibe from them that they may be questioning their sexuality or have chosen not to disclose that to people, which is fine. And you get a funny reaction sometimes. Sometimes you get that I know that you know, and that kind of like little like wink nod, like, you know, let's just keep this between us. And then other times you get quite a abrupt, almost like a unfriendliness because they get a little bit frightened about talking to you too much and you might find out their secret. But being a gay person in the media, so the biggest challenge is breaking down the stereotypes of what it means to be a gay person in media, and just the fact that the people that we have seen before where they're super camp or they're, you know, a bit of the butt of the joke or, you know, those kind of characters. And I'm really here to kind of like show that I have lots of facets to myself and that, you know, I might like painting my nails, but, you know, I also was a country boy who grew up in Tasmania and I'm one of 4 kids, you know, like I really want to show that diversity that there are so many different people in our community and that we are not all that kind of like traditional camp gay person that's been in the media for years and years and years. And also too, I mean, we are hard workers. We often have very high expectations for ourselves. And I feel like sometimes we don't get the same opportunities that other people get. We get looked over for things. And I just really want to show people that, you know, if you do work hard and you really believe in yourself and your skills, then you can absolutely have what anyone else has and that your sexual preference shouldn't come into it at all.
You get one gay working by themselves and we can achieve anything just as long as there's only one.
Absolutely can, yeah.
You put 2 and forget it.
Have to share.
Exactly. You put a group of us and we'll get nothing done. We're just talking.
Yeah, we'll be kicking about stuff and like talking about TV shows and clothes. You're absolutely right.
But one, we can rule the world.
Yeah, for sure. So we should.
Exactly. And I find that really interesting what you were saying before about the ones who are closeted, who know that you know they are and they know they are, but they don't want it because it still is a big thing within the movie industry, and also even that gay guys are still getting or lesbians are still getting overlooked. So it's still very dark ages, I suppose, within them industries. So they say nothing because they want to get the leading roles. And I've interviewed many people, as you have as well, who are, but they just don't acknowledge it.
No, and that's the thing. And you make a really good point. This is, you know, for gay men, for lesbians, for, you know, and it extends now to, we've had celebrities who have been outed that have been transgender. You know, there's so many parts of people's lives that they have chosen to keep to themselves. And in some instances, it's been, like I said before, like coming out, it's been taken away from them. And you have to respect that if they don't want to share that part of their life, then that's totally up to them. We have no right as public, it's human nature for us to be intrigued about what is going on in someone's personal life. But really, if they want to keep it to themselves, I believe you have to respect that and you have to just understand that, like, there is some acknowledgement there, but they really would, you know, just prefer to talk about the project that they're working on and talk about their work and not be judged based off something in their personal life.
And the media is very still consumed about the whole, oh, they're gay, let's go after them like it's news. And it's this weird kind of world where being gay isn't a big deal anymore. But then when a celebrity or someone high profile is or gets found out they are, it becomes this hysteria where, oh, we've got to chase them down and find out the story. This is big news. And I think that feeds into it a lot as well. It shouldn't be news.
No, it shouldn't be news. And that's the thing. But then you have people like Harry Styles who simply will not answer the question. And I kind of love that. I'm kind of like, keep doing that, Harry, because it doesn't matter who your preference is or who you want to date or whether you're with a girl or a boy. And you're getting a great role model for those that shouldn't need to feel that they have to, you know, divulge that information. And it makes me giggle sometimes because I know it drives, you know, gossip columns nuts because they just want to know and they know that people will click on that when they do a story like that. But I kind of find it entertaining because the fact that someone like Harry Styles, biggest star in the world, is just withholding that and just let people think that what they want to think.
Yeah, well, he's a great example of the whole. We'll put some pearls on. We'll wear a dress. We'll run around with the gay flag. We'll put a Bunnings hat on, and we'll just do whatever we want to do. And he reminds me a lot of Bowie. Actually, it's kind of blowing the lines, but who cares? There's no box I'm going to fit in, and no one should have to. We're past that.
Exactly, and the box that he fits in is no box, and that's actually where a lot of people will find themselves. They might want to wear a dress, but they might want to date girls, or tomorrow they might want to, put on the Bunnings hat and yet see a boy. And that is the reality, is that there are people in society who also are exactly the same. You have to have representation. I really believe that very strongly. And representation doesn't just mean black and white or this or that or one or the other. Sometimes it can be all shades of grey. And I think someone like him perfectly falls into those categories.
I definitely agree there. Now, you had a questionnaire, a list of questions that gay men hate to be asked. And I found this one really interesting because I've come across it in my time as well. When people say you're in a relationship, a monogamous relationship, just like anyone else, and they turn around and go, oh, do you have an open relationship because you're gay? Like, what's that all about?
This is the thing, and it was very interesting because it was an anonymous question that came through to me on social media, and people love the anonymous questions. I get the most responses to those when I put them up because people are a little bit too scared to ask me themselves, and I'm happy to answer them because if it helps someone, then that's great. But yeah, the question about being in an open relationship, and I will preface this by saying for those people that works for, then that's great. But unfortunately, what I say to people is that I am horrendously boring and horrendously what you would call normal. I might be out doing a red carpet to go to tonight for a movie premiere, but I'm literally today have been walking my dog and doing the laundry and seeing my partner when he comes home from work. And so life is incredibly normal. And I really like to show that to people. I'm not living this crazy lifestyle where it's all just glitz and glamour all the time, or it's all parties and nightclubs or open relationships or things like that. I'm people in queer relationships can be monogamous, and we can really prefer not to go to nightclubs. Don't get me wrong. I love to give it a nudge every now and then, but I'm tired. I'm old. We're not all a walking stereotype. Sometimes we just happen to be exactly like everyone else. So I just wanted to really spell that out to people that was something that I was finding people were making assumptions about. And I was I don't know what gave you that impression. It's kind of sad that's the impression that you have, or the stereotype that you have about queer people, because there's so much more to us than those kind of one-off relationships that really only apply to some people.
Sorry to break it to the rest of the world, but gay guys can be quite boring, like 1950s housewives, and it doesn't get much exciting than having dinner on the table when the other half come home, the laundry, going to bed
it's all got to be done. I don't have someone who comes around here and, I do have someone that cleans my house every now and then, but most of the time I have to do it. It's just, we're terribly average and terribly normal. I hate to break it to you.
It's not all what you see on Insta and Facebook and TikTok. There is normal life happening, and it is very boring. 8 o'clock in bed, lights out, tired.
I agree.
Now, you done for Mardi Gras, the Loud and Proud. You were the host on Hey You, and you focused on, I think it was 7-minute conversations with people from the LGBTIQ plus community. Now, I found that very cool. I thought the whole concept was great. And just the people you had that came through and you spoke to just in little intervals was very creative. What did you kind of get out of that?
It was a little project that I started. I mean, we had been working on it for such a long time. I started speaking to Hey You about it probably the end of last year, maybe September last year. And I just said to them, I'd worked with them before. Their parent company has a wonderful LGBTQIA plus strategy in place and support network for their staff. And I just said to them, I would love to do something with them for World Pride. And we sort of went back and forth. And next minute they were like, okay, cool. This is going to be the first ever Hey You original series in Australia for World Pride. I'm hosting it. I'm talking to all my LGBT friends. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was just so incredibly proud when it came out. I mean, I was loud and proud, like literally the name of the show. And the idea is that I wanted to get a cross section of a lot of parts of the community who also happen to be my friends, who also happen to be celebrities, and just not the people that you would normally expect to see every day. I wanted to have Samantha Jade on there because she's a wonderful ally and she always has been. And, I've known her for 10 years and it was a very surreal moment to have her sing at the premiere, and I got a little bit choked up when I saw her, and it makes me feel very, very emotional now because I thought to myself, imagine going back 10 years and saying to Samantha Jade and to me 10 years ago, that you're going to be singing at the premiere of my show during World Pride. Like, it's very surreal to be given that platform and to be given that voice. And I wanted to make sure every day that we filmed it, we just kept talking about kids in regional Australia, in regional markets across the world, because it went to 40 markets across the world, that might see it and might see themselves in one of us. And so it was really important to show diversity and have representation and, have a variety of people on the show with different stories and different backgrounds and to share that with people and really not have any agenda, not do it to try and get the pink dollar or get people to subscribe. Hey, you were just outrageously good about it. I've never worked with a brand before who have been so careful and caring and shown a project the love and attention that it needed to really just produce something that was just a beautiful piece of content for our community across the world with all eyes on it. And it was just, we had Andy Cohen come for the premiere. Lisa Vanderpump and Andy were involved in the show. Like, it was just an unreal experience that really left me with my cup full, so to speak.
And that's the great thing too about getting out there and getting into as many homes as possible or into as many ears as possible, if people are listening to it, to say that, hey, you living here and you might be thinking that there's no hope for you and there's no other people like you, but listening to a show or watching a show on TV and seeing these people and having these conversations, it's about bringing hope to people who think, well, there's no one out there like that for me. And it's just amazing. And, that's what we try to do here as well, is try to have the conversations and get it out there, because no matter what you're going through in life, there's someone who can relate to that is doing a similar journey or has done the same journey as you. And there's always hope.
Always. And that's what I love about, the fact that we have podcasts and gosh, to be able to do it on the international level of a TV show like that was just incredible because like you say, I wanted to make sure that we were just reaching out to those people and letting them know that we're here. And a big thing was a lot of our stories can be very emotional, and I know that we all have a lot of things that have happened to us in our lives, and I just wanted to acknowledge those, but also share with people that if you want to be a singer like Jack Vidgen, or if you want to be a red carpet reporter like me, you can, and you absolutely deserve that. And that there is, the grass can be very, very green on this side, and that you can overcome the struggles that you might have and live an incredible life. And I just want to showcase those people who I feel are doing that and who are living their best life and who are great examples of people who are thriving in our community, and just show people that we all have our trials and tribulations, but don't forget to celebrate the great stuff as well.
So very true. And thank you so much for putting that together, because I think that helped a lot of people without you even knowing it. And it's great to see that big corporate companies like that are helping to show the way. So it's great to see.
Oh, thank you so much. I love hearing that, because sometimes you do these things and you have no idea whether people like them or not. So I know with that, I love doing it. Everyone involved loved doing it. And I heard people come up to me on the street and tell me that they loved it. And so it's just great to hear that people got just as much enjoyment out of it as what we did making.
Sydney hosted World Pride not too long ago now. Do you remember the feeling within Sydney at that time? And what were some of the favourite things you got up to?
Oh, gosh, firstly to see Sydney just come alive. Like, it just was, I lived near the city, and it was just incredible to see street parties and to have the opening ceremony, the beach party at Bondi. Like, there were so many parts of it that just it was an incredible celebration and an incredible festival, and it really felt like the electricity had come back to the city, you know, like it was amazing to walk around. And I just thought to myself, instead of just having like one or two things to look forward to, I had like, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 events, you know, and I could have done more. Like I just loved being a part of it and celebrating what it meant to, you know, be a part of our community and to be around people, even when we weren't at events, like just out for brunch on the weekends and just see everyone and everything in our community being celebrated. And so for me, it was twofold. It was celebrating that, but also really explaining to people that outside of World Pride is equally just as important to make sure that you're supporting our community and supporting, you know, Wear It Purple Day and Ida Hobbit. And, you know, just like there are so many touch points throughout the year where you can do things for our community. And yes, it's fantastic to celebrate during World Pride, but don't forget about us the rest of the time as well.
No, that's so true. And it was a bit like a gaytopia. There was so much to do.
It really was. It was a gaytopia.
But also in saying that too, I found even with the opening party, the bridge walk, a lot of the things we did, everyone was so chilled. Like it was just this great vibe. There was no aggressiveness. There was no drunkenness. Everyone was just out there to have fun and relax. And yeah, it was just this amazing vibe. I can't really kind of put it into words, but I suppose you're there, you could kind of feel it as well. But even the street parties in Oxford Street and all that, it was just, yeah, it was fantastic. I was kind of sad to see it all go, really.
Yeah, same here. And even around Australia, like, you know, seeing people celebrate World Pride in different states in their own way, like it was really, it felt like a very universal event. I think sometimes Mardi Gras can feel very Sydney-centric and, you know, being someone who has friends in other states and other countries, it just really felt like it extended further out beyond Sydney this time and you could really feel that community spirit.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And there were so many other, you know, whether it was TV, radio or regional areas, they're all doing their own little thing. And it was all kind of made it for not just Sydney, but whole of Australia kind of came on board for LGBTIQ plus community. And it was great to see.
For sure. And I think like a lot of people might be horrified by me saying this, but I would love to do it every year.
So true.
It might take us a year to like recover from it, but like let's do it again next year.
And I truly think that would be a great idea. And I did speak to a few people about it and they said if they just done Mardi Gras and pushed it out a week or two more, they could incorporate something, maybe not as big, but just get that vibe. And because there's so much stuff out there to do and incorporate, it would be brilliant to see. And also great revenue, like Sydney would have made a lot of money.
Great revenue. And also too, people haven't been able to come to Sydney because of COVID. And I've worked with Mardi Gras before, and what I'm hoping is that, you know, my hope for them next year is that they take some things that really worked well and they do a scaled back version, or, you know, they do a scaled back version of the villages or the street parties. You know, they do the opening ceremony again because there were so many great things that they did and they were able to take a chance on this year because it was World Pride and there was a lot of excitement and they could, you know, kind of like guarantee that people would buy a ticket or turn up or, you know, like everything's sold out and things like that. So I'm hoping next year we do get, you know, a little bit more and not just, you know, what we're used to getting.
And especially with the opening party and stuff like that, there's simpler things that they could do just automatically and slot it in there and it'd work fantastic.
Totally. Completely agree.
So if you're listening, put it together, guys.
Yeah, Mardi Gras, you know, God, please. That's what we would like for next year.
Now, who has been your most interesting person or celebrity, I should say, you've interviewed?
Now, this is a very interesting question because a lot of people ask me this and I always say back, well, who do you like as a celebrity? Because I have been lucky enough to pretty much interview everyone. Sometimes I might say someone, but you might not like them. So you might be like, oh, I don't really think that that's very interesting. But if I were to keep it broad, I would say the best person I've ever interviewed was Angelina Jolie. She is a huge superstar and was very surprisingly warm, very generous with her time. It was a very stressful environment that I was chatting to her in and she was calm and, you know, she laughed at my stupid jokes. It was a great experience for someone who, you know, could often be surrounded by a lot of people and a lot of entourage that could stop you from having a really genuine moment with her. And I was lucky enough to have that. So she's one of my favorites for sure.
And do you find that too with the entourage? You'll ask a question and then you'll get the weird look or they'll go, we're not talking about that today.
I can't even tell you the kind of requests that I've had where I've been asked not to speak about things and you just sort of think to yourself, really? Like, oh my goodness. Like, but the thing is you have to respect that these people are probably exhausted. They have traveled, they have worked, probably doing 5 jobs, at the beck and call of these celebrities. And so when they ask you not to discuss something, you kind of have to respect that, because if you don't, they will get stern with you. And I have absolutely seen that before. I'm usually a good boy and I do as I'm told, but it does happen. I've seen Brad Pitt's manager stop interviews mid-interview because someone asked something that, they weren't meant to ask. And I saw Kate Blanchett just rip shreds off someone one day because they also asked a question that they were specifically told not to query her about. And so you kind of have to respect that. Like, yes, they are a public figure and yes, they are sharing their lives with us. But like, if they're there to talk about their work and they don't want to talk about their personal life, you really do have to respect that. And it will go a long way. You will be remembered and for the right reasons.
And you'll be asked to come back to do someone else, or otherwise you'll just be, blacklisted.
Exactly. And I know a lot of people that have had that happen to them as well. Don't you worry. Those publicists, they remember.
That's so true. Who's been your worst interview that you thought,
Well, I do. I have signed a lot of NDAs. So I'll give you the answer that I've given before, but I also like to kind of give it with a caveat. But probably one of my worst was Mark Wahlberg, but in saying that, it really taught me a lesson, and it was quite early on in my career. I think he was jet lagged, he was tired. I asked him a question about a Transformers movie, and he just didn't want to answer it. And I feel like, I'd just gotten him on a day where he was so exhausted from traveling to Australia that his brain could only really handle the answers that he had sort of pre-scripted in his head, which a lot of celebrities do. And when you've been doing this for as long as what I have, you tend to realize that sometimes you get a bit duped, and sometimes the celebrities actually give the same answers to everyone, and we all end up getting the same interview, which is hilarious. But on that day, he didn't want to answer any question that was too tricky. And I'm a big Transformers fan, so I was asking him something really specific, and so he just was like, "I don't know, man." And then I was like, "Oh, that's a bit weird." And sometimes I've looked down at my microphone before for a red carpet interview, and it said 48 seconds. That's the entirety of the time that you get with someone. And so, I ended up asking him the really boring question that I really hate to ask, which was, what was your favorite part about shooting this movie? And then he went into automatic mode and he gave me an answer, but I know that answer was something that he kind of pre-scripted in his head. And it kind of taught me a few things. The first thing is that celebrities are just as stressed and nervous to talk to me as what I am to talk to them, because they have publicists watching them, they have directors there with them often, they have movie execs, making sure that they're saying and doing the right things so that people go and see the movie. A lot of responsibility weighs in on their shoulders, and sometimes the success of the film can come down to press, and that's why a lot of stars hate doing it, because it is a lot of responsibility and you kind of feel like it falls squarely on your shoulders. And then if they've got personal things going on, they sort of think to themselves, "Oh, I hope this person doesn't ask me about that." So there's a lot going on from their side. And I think I caught him on a bad day, but I definitely learned a lot from that. And I really approach every interview that I do these days with just, an attitude of wanting them to have a great time, and I never, ever, ever want a celebrity to feel like I'm going to get a headline out of them or scare them into saying something. I just want them to have a really good time, to let their guard down a little bit. And that's kind of how I approach all of my celebrity interviews.
Because I suppose you want it to come across natural. And as you were saying, you look down at your mic, 45 seconds, you can't do anything. That's not even a grab. You know what I mean? You can't do much with that.
And there's a certain talent in that, being able to read the room. And I feel like I've always been able to do that. Read a celebrity. I've learned how to lip read, being on the red carpet. You gauge the situation, because sometimes you've only got 48 seconds to get a great piece of content. And sometimes you just have to settle for the fact that it can be a pre-scripted answer. That's all they want to give you that day.
And I suppose for them too, it's a bit like the hard sell, because as you said, other people are up from the chain are all looking at them. So they've got to toe the line. It's not like they can just do whatever they want to do, because there is other people saying, well, we've got to make sure this movie sells.
Yeah, and a lot of them want to, they're perfectionists. They really don't want to let people down. They want to do a good job, and that's how a lot of us are in the media industry. We work really hard, and you don't want some little whippersnapper of a red carpet reporter to upset all of that great work that you've done and not answer the question how you would like to answer it.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, you've been the host of RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under. Now, it's skyrocketed to like the number one download on iTunes, which is pretty crazy when you think of how many podcasts there is out there in the iTunes universe.
So I host a podcast for Stan, for RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under, and it was, oh my goodness, a career highlight. I mean, I have watched that show from season 1 when they had the blurry Vaseline filter on RuPaul. I mean, those people out there listening to this that have also watched it from them will know exactly what I'm talking about. And so it was an absolute career highlight to be even part of the World of Wonder family by association through Stan. It was just incredible and amazing to work with a group of people who are also from the LGBT community who've created a huge, megalith of a show, of a brand, of something that's loved universally and has so many fans. And so it was an honor to be able to do that. And I mean, it's just icing on the cake. When you hit the number one spot on the podcast chart, even better, because the thing is, if you're creating great content and people are listening to it, then that's excellent. You're doing your job properly, and it's a real, it's kind of like a nice pat on the back for you when you get that.
Now, something we like to ask all our guests, if you could go back and tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I could go back to yesterday and tell myself things, don't you worry. I would just say to myself, keep that feeling of no one can ever tell you that you can't do what you want to do. Sometimes it's not the most glamorous road, but stick with it. Don't give up. When you think that like you've been told no 50, 100 times, there's going to be another 100 no's, but all you need is just one yes.
Justin, thank you so much for coming on LGBTI Conversation today.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. What a great chat.
If you love listening to LGBTI Conversations, make sure to follow. This will help other people find us much easier. And also, make sure that you never miss out on an episode. Thanks for listening to LGBTI Conversations with me, Anthony Doik.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.